There's a massive blind spot in how we talk about global crime and violence. When a person carrying a Muslim name commits a terrible act, the entire religion of Islam is placed in the interrogation room. But when anyone else does it, they get an endless buffer of sociology, psychology, and history. Think about the immediate reaction to breaking news. If the suspect is Muslim, the very first question on the broadcast is, "What is wrong with Islam?" But if the suspect is non-Muslim, the conversation immediately shifts to, "What were his personal motives?" Or, "Did he have a history of mental health struggles?" If we are going to judge an entire belief system by the crimes of the people culturally associated with it, we need to ask ourselves a simple question. Are we willing to apply that exact same standard to everyone else? Look at global rankings for things like prostitution. The countries consistently near the top of those lists, like Thailand, Denmark, and Germany, are historically Buddhist or Christian societies. Nobody concludes that Buddhism is the religion of prostitution. We recognize that would be an absurd and ignorant conclusion. The same goes for theft. Countries with high property crime rates include places like Australia, Denmark, and Hindu-majority India. Analysts blame reporting systems, urban density, and economic structures. No fair-minded person blames the Bible or the Vedas. When we look at alcoholism, a crisis that destroys millions of families and bodies worldwide, the highest consumption rates are often found in historically Christian nations across Eastern Europe and Russia. We rightfully treat this as a severe public health crisis. We don't label it Christian alcohol terrorism. When extreme homicide rates plague Christian-majority nations in Central America and the Caribbean, sociologists point to gang violence, poverty, and post-colonial instability. The religious background of the murderers is entirely absent from the analysis. Even with massive transnational organized crime networks, like the Yakuza or Latin American drug cartels that corrupt governments and build empires of blood, the media treats the criminals as individuals. We look at a trafficker moving mountains of narcotics, and we call him a gangster. That is the double standard in action. When the criminal is secular, Christian or Buddhist, they remain an individual. When the criminal is Muslim, they become a walking, talking explanation of Islam itself. Now let's test this standard against the macro history of state warfare. The First World War was an entirely European catastrophe, born from imperial rivalry and nationalism. It consumed roughly 20 million human lives. Nobody asks the churches of Europe to apologize for the trenches. 2 decades later, the Second World War became the deadliest conflict in human history. Industrialized killing reached a scale the world had never seen, leaving 40 to 50 million dead. We call it a global tragedy and a fascist nightmare. We do not call it European religious violence. In August 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The instant incineration of more than 170,000 civilians is debated in history books as a strategic military calculation. The religion of the politicians and pilots who executed the strike is completely ignored. Go further back. Following 1492, European conquest, forced labor, and disease triggered a demographic collapse in the Americas. Across the hemisphere, indigenous populations fell by up to 95%. These are history's greatest atrocities, yet they are given a vast vocabulary of political, strategic, and economic excuses. Only the smaller-scale crimes of the weak are branded by their religion. We see this exact same linguistic shield applied to colonialism. Under British settlement in Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples suffered brutal land seizures, frontier massacres, and long-term cultural devastation. This diagram shows the lower deck of a British slave ship. It reveals the industrialized reality of the transatlantic slave trade, a commercial crime that forced 12.5 million Africans into bondage. An estimated 1.8 million died on the crossing alone, before even reaching the plantations. Under King Leopold II of Belgium, the Congo Free State became a massive slaughterhouse driven by European greed for rubber and ivory. Hostage-taking, mutilation, and forced labor killed an estimated 10 million people. In the mid-20th century, Western military intervention devastated Vietnam with napalm and chemical defoliants, resulting in an estimated 2 million civilian deaths. Vietnam never invaded Paris or Washington. We filed these staggering losses away under chapter titles like Exploration, or Colonial History, or Cold War Proxy Conflicts. The perpetrators are never assigned the label of terrorist. This framing continues today. In 2003, a U.S.-led coalition invaded Iraq based on weapons of mass destruction that did not exist. The invasion dismantled state institutions, ignited sectarian violence, and resulted in hundreds of thousands of violent civilian deaths. This chart visualizes the human toll of the post-9/11 wars across Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, and Pakistan. Between 2001 and 2023, more than 940,000 people were killed directly by war violence, while millions more were displaced or impoverished. Of that total, over 432,000 were civilians. When military strikes from powerful nations kill these innocent people, the deaths are sanitized with the phrase collateral damage. When Western intelligence agencies overthrew Iran's elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh in 1953 to protect oil interests, it was a brutal act of geopolitical manipulation. Decades later, foreign policy analysts express shock at Iranian anti-Western sentiment, eager to analyze the victim's anger while ignoring the original wound. When France colonized Algeria for 132 years, the resulting struggle for independence cost anywhere from 300,000 to 1.5 million lives, a mountain of blood, documented simply as colonial administration. This is the vocabulary of power. When weak populations react to violence, they are given criminal labels. When powerful states destroy entire regions, it is called stabilization or a strategic miscalculation. If we want to define terrorism honestly, we have to look at the action, not the actor. If terrorism means organized violence for political goals, spreading fear among populations, and treating human life as disposable for profit and empire, then modern history has a very long list of defendants. But the world's moral language is controlled by power. Sanctions that destroy children's lives are called pressure. Overthrowing a government is regime change. Stealing resources is investment. When the word terrorism is typed out and ready before the facts of a crime are even known, linking Islam to violence isn't an objective search for truth. It is a way for powerful nations to hide their own violence behind someone else's scripture. Islam, like any belief system, should be judged by its actual principles, its moral vision, its strict prohibition of oppression, and its command to uphold justice, even against oneself. It should not be judged by the actions of criminals who misuse its name. The world needs one honest scale. Put everyone on it. The lone criminal with a weapon, the president with a drone fleet, the architect of economic sanctions, and the colonizer with a flag. Only when we stop excusing the violence of the powerful while condemning the violence of the weak can we finally speak honestly about justice.